If you're starting from scratch today in 2026 wanting to do your first development, the truth is that the biggest risk isn't the market, the bank, or the builder. It's doing your very first project with no real plan, no numbers, and no team, and only realizing halfway through that the deal was never going to be profitable or successful. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through step by step exactly how I'd start property development in 2026 if I was beginning again. We'll cover what type of project to aim for, how to think about risk, how to choose a location, the core team you need around you, and the simple way to run your numbers so you don't end up with a learning experience that costs you 6 figures. Because make no mistake, you can lose money as fast as you can make it in this game. So you need to be bulletproof before you start. If you stay with me to the end, you'll be able to map out a realistic first project and know exactly what to do in the next 7 days to get moving. Hey guys, Peter Kelly here from Little Fish. We help everyday Aussies build smarter, avoid the big traps, and get clarity around their property journey, especially if you're thinking townhouses, dual occupancy, or small development projects. Let's get into it. Most people think starting property development is about finding a bargain site. But in reality, the starting line is your strategy and understanding your risk profile. So before you even open realestate.com, I want you to answer 3 simple questions. Firstly, ask yourself, why do you want to develop? Are you trying to replace your income, build long-term wealth, create a one-off profit to clear debt, have a crack at something you always wanted to do, or any other reason? Second, you need to ask yourself, what is your tolerance for risk? Could you sleep at night if a project went sideways and you had to hold the completed product without selling them for longer? Or if you potentially had to walk away with less profit than you'd hoped? You need to be honest with yourself here as well. It is important because this will help you determine the type of project you should undertake. And third, who are you planning to do it with? Is it just you? Do you have a partner, or are you thinking about bringing in a family member or a friend? And if you are, how aligned are you on risk, timelines, and expectations? Because these projects often take the best part of 2 years and can be risky without the right help and information. Once you can be honest with yourself about those 3 things, you can treat this undertaking as what it actually is, a business and not a hobby or a game to play with on the side. Even if you are only doing 1 project in your life, I want you to be thinking about a small development business. This means having a bulletproof plan for the next 1, 3, or 5, and even 10 years. Is it your plan to do a project every couple of years? Do you want to stack a couple of smaller, low-risk projects? Or is it your dream to one day run bigger multi-townhouse sites? Wherever it is you want to go, your first project should move you forward with that plan and not just be a hopeful gamble. If you're starting in 2026 and you've never done a development before, I'm a big believer in starting small, simple, and low risk. One of my favorite quotes is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. For most people, that looks like a straightforward dual occupancy or duplex in an established suburb, not a complicated corner block with slope and trees everywhere and maybe 6 dwellings on it. Your first project should do 3 things. It should be relatively easy to get through council. It should be easy to build, so nothing overcomplicated like underground car parking, excessive retaining walls, dealing with steep fall, big tree removals, or unusual designs that need specialised trades. And it should be a product that local buyers or renters already want, which you can figure out by looking at recent sales. That's renting quickly and what type of homes agents in the areas are saying they can't get enough of. The goal of your first project should be to gain priceless experience and a clean result. You don't want to find yourself trying to squeeze every cent out of it just to make it work. Now, whether you're doing this alone or thinking about bringing in a money partner, a sibling, a parent, a mate, the fundamentals are all the same. You need to understand exactly what you're doing before you ask anyone to trust you or before you trust yourself with a 6 or 7 figure project. So start by figuring out what kind of projects work in your price range. Study real deals in those suburbs that you can afford. Look at recent approvals, recent sales, and past projects that are like what you are wanting to build. Then start practicing your feasibilities. And the best way to practice is by doing a lot of them. Not just running one feasibility on one site that you've fallen in love with. Do reps. Run the numbers on listings so you can quickly spot what works and what doesn't. Get to a point where you can confidently say, here's the site, here's the numbers, and here's the upside, and here's the risk, and here's why this is the right first project. No one will partner with you just because you're enthusiastic. They'll partner with you because they can clearly see that you have done the work and that you understand the project, the good and the bad. By the way, if you haven't already, make sure you join our free property development network, the Little Fish Network. Get in there and learn from thousands of developers doing this stuff every day. It will fast track your progress, guaranteed. I've dropped the link below. Now, let's talk about where you should be looking to develop. A lot of people make the mistake of developing in the suburb they grew up in because they know it, but that's not enough. In 2026, I want you to be thinking about two things at the same time. The first is demand, and the second is buildability. When I say demand, I'm referring to things like being close to shops, schools, public transport, parks, village strips, employment hubs, the places where people genuinely want to live near. None of this is new, but it is important, and that's why I'm reminding you. And buildability is something most first-time developers underestimate. It's doing proper due diligence and understanding the slope on a block and how that might affect what you can build. It's assessing the trees and how they'll impact your design or add cost. And it's understanding the street side services, power, sewer, water, NBN, where they're located, and whether they're going to add complication or cost. It's also knowing what your particular council is like to deal with. All of this matters. If you can find suburbs that tick both boxes, solid demand for the reasons we just covered, and relatively clean blocks with minimal encumbrances and fewer complications, your risk drops fast. Your budget will naturally help narrow this down. The more you can comfortably spend on the land, the better area you can get into, and that will help protect your downside. But don't just chase the fanciest suburb you can afford. That's not enough either. You want a suburb where the end product you're building is normal for the area. You don't want to be first, and you don't want to get caught overcapitalizing, spending more than you should be relatively to what actually sells there. Now let's talk about feasibilities, but in plain English. A feasibility is just a simple spreadsheet that answers two questions. First, what is the total realistic cost of the project after every single cost is factored in? And second, how much can you realistically sell the finished product for? That's it. On the cost side, the things you need to consider include the land purchase costs and stamp duty, any design and planning costs, your designer, town planner, and engineering. Council fees and contributions such as open space, which automatically kicks in when you move from 2 to 3. Your build costs, the costs associated with subdivision and titles. You have the selling costs also, so agent commissions and any marketing that you plan when selling your properties. Then there is bank interest and holding costs for the money that you borrow. Let's be honest, not many people are running around paying cash, maybe one day. And you need to consider any accounting and legal costs. And then one of my favorite line items is contingency. Things will go wrong. It's just the way it works out. You can expect things to take longer and cost more. They more often than not do. So you need to prepare for this and account for this potentially happening. I like to allow a buffer in two places. A percentage contingency on the build costs and a time buffer for how long the project will actually take. Because extra time usually means extra bank interest and holding costs. On the revenue side, you're looking for comparable sales. That just means recent sales of similar homes in the area. Similar size, similar specification, and similar location, as close to your site as possible. You'll almost never find a perfect one-to-one match. You might have one sale that's a little smaller than what you're planning with a slightly different spec, and another that's a touch bigger with a higher end spec. Your job is to make a realistic view and adjust up or down accordingly. You can figure out pessimistic, realistic, and optimistic resale prices. This gives you the full view of what's possible. If the project only works at the optimistic end, it's probably not the right project. If it still looks okay using the pessimistic number, you're starting to get into safer territory. Once you've got your head around the numbers and your target area, the next big step is assembling your core team. You cannot and should not try to do everything yourself, especially on your first project. Here are the key players that you are going to need to knock your first project out of the park. First, your designer. They're the ones who are going to work out what you can fit on the site and turn your vision into a workable set of plans. And just for clarity, when I say designer, I'm including a draftsperson or an architect, depending on who you're using. Both can work, but it is horses for courses. A good designer doesn't just draw what you ask for. They understand what council will support, how to make the homes livable, and how to design in a way that's efficient to build. Second is your town planner. This is the person who understands your local planning rules inside and out and helps you navigate council. They'll look at overlays, setbacks, private open space, parking, your heights, all the stuff that can quietly kill a project if it's ignored and not understood. In an ideal world, your designer and town planner work together. Great ones overlap and speak each other's language, which then means fewer surprises and a smoother run through council. Third is your land surveyor. They'll measure the site properly, do the re-establishment and features and levels survey. That's to start, and later help you with your subdivision approval and title registrations. They're also handy early on if you've got any unusual things on title or if you're not sure how the block sits in relation to the neighbouring properties. Fourth is your builder. Obviously, this is a massive one. Your builder is the one who will deliver your design in the real world. If you can get a good builder involved early, even just a sanity check, your build rates and your design, you can avoid a lot of pain. They can help you understand realistic build costs, where you can save money through design, and whether what you're drawing is efficient or not. Fifth is a good broker. This is your link to the money. Super important. They'll help you understand how much you can borrow, what kind of finance product makes sense, and how the bank is going to look at your deal. Sixth is your accountant. They'll help you set up the right ownership structure right from the start. They'll think about your tax, they'll make sure that there's a way of doing the deal that makes sense for your own situation. And finally, your solicitor or conveyancer. They'll handle the legal side, contracts, reviewing your purchase, and getting through the settlement. And then later on, they'll help you finalise your sales and title registrations. Now, here's the key mindset with your team. You are not trying to impress them by knowing everything. You are trying to be teachable. Be open, be honest, and ask questions. But respect their experience and be a bit vulnerable. Let them know the areas that you don't quite understand. You're stepping into a game that these people play every day. If you can show them that you're serious, prepared, and willing to listen, they'll usually go out of their way to help you. Now, let's talk about what you need as far as tools and software. You don't need anything fancy to begin. In 2026, you can run a very solid first project with a handful of simple tools. A spreadsheet for your feasibility. Google Sheets or Excel is more than enough. Good mapping and planning tools that can help you research sites from your desk. I use Land Checker, but there are plenty of other good ones out there. And a good loan and holding cost calculator, which your broker can help you with. That is really all you need to get started. Inside our world, running up to 100 sites at any given time, we use feasibility templates and mapping tools every day because they let us look at lots of sites quickly. Your job is to get comfortable using these tools so you can look at a listing and in a short amount of time say, this is worth a deeper look, or this is never going to make sense financially, move on. That skill alone will save you months of wasted time and a lot of emotional energy. Talking about emotional energy, let me quickly walk you through some of the big mistakes I see beginners make all the time, so you can avoid them from day one. The first one is chasing big on-paper margins on sites that are way too complex in the real world. Something might look amazing on a spreadsheet, but once you factor in tricky designs or difficult access, it can fall apart fast. Another big one is underestimating the basics. Things like how much the block slopes, what trees are going to cost you to remove or design around, and where the power, sewer and water will actually run. These things sound simple, but they can make or break a project. A lot of beginners also assume that council will just approve it because a neighbour did something similar years ago. But councils change, rules change, planners change. What got approved in 2013 has nothing to do with what will get approved in 2026. When you don't allow a proper buffer for unexpected costs or delays, every little surprise eats straight into your profit. Another mistake I see is stretching every last dollar on the land. People fall in love with the site, spend their whole budget buying it, and then realise that they've left themselves no real room for surprises, no room to breathe, and even sometimes not even enough money to get the design right. Not getting a builder involved early enough is another classic. A good builder can tell you straight away if your plans are realistic, if your build costs are in the right ballpark, or if you're designing something that's going to cost you far more than you expect. And finally, a big one, treating the first project like a one-off punt instead of your first step into a long-term plan. If you see this as a quick win or a gamble, you're missing the point. Your first project is about building experience, confidence, and capability. Profit is great, but the long-term game matters more. If you can avoid these mistakes, you'll already be ahead of most people who try to get into property development. So, if you've watched this far and you're serious about starting in 2026, here's what I do in the next week. Pick one or two of your target suburbs that fit your budget. Spend a couple of nights going deep on recent sales, especially end products similar to what you'd like to build. Then I would set up a simple feasibility spreadsheet and start practicing on real listings. Reach out to one potential team member, a designer, a town planner, a broker, or a builder, and book a chat. You don't need to buy a site in the next 4 weeks, but you do need to build knowledge, build relationships, and build confidence. That's how you go from just thinking about property development to actually becoming a developer. And if you want even more support, I offer one-on-one mentoring where you work with me personally, as well as full project management and even buyer's advocacy to help you find the perfect site for your new build. And you can book a call directly with me anytime. I've dropped the link below. And make sure that you get inside the Little Fish Network. It's free and it's full of literally thousands of developers helping each other every day. There is a link below for that also. And of course, if you got value from this video, give it a hype and a like, hit the subscribe button and drop any questions in the comments. I'm in there every day answering questions. Until then, see you at the top.